AITA for refusing to cook after my BF tried to critique my cooking with a literal PowerPoint presentation. You won't believe what I did in response. So, buckle up, because this whole situation is still blowing my mind. I'm trying to process what even happened, but I feel like I need a sounding board to figure out if I'm losing my mind or if this is as insane as it seems. For a bit of context, I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I've been with my boyfriend, who's 30, for just over 2 years. We've been living together for a little over a year, and it's been good for the most part. We get along well, have a similar sense of humor, and just mesh together in all the ways that really count, or so I thought. Now, here's the thing, I do almost all the cooking at home. Not because of any outdated sense of duty or some expectation that it's my job. I do it because cooking is my thing. It's where I can lose myself and feel creative. I can't even explain the satisfaction I get from trying new recipes, experimenting with spices, adjusting flavors, and then seeing a dish come together. It's like a little performance, but the applause is that first bite when I know I nailed it. The process of going from ingredients on a counter to a meal we both enjoy is genuinely fulfilling. Grocery shopping doesn't feel like a chore for me, it's almost therapeutic. Planning our meals, organizing the pantry, figuring out what fresh ingredients I want to play with that week, it's all part of my routine. I love knowing that I'm bringing us together over something I created with my own hands, and for the most part, I'd always thought he loved it too. My boyfriend, on the other hand, is what he likes to call kitchen-averse, and honestly, he plays it up like it's his defining character trait. I mean, he's not kidding when he says he's hopeless in the kitchen. We're talking about a grown man who once managed to burn microwave popcorn so badly the smell lingered for days. He has this running joke that he couldn't even boil water without calling the fire department, and while I've always laughed along, there was a part of me that figured he was exaggerating. I've tried teaching him some basics now and then, encouraging him to try cooking something simple when I wasn't around, just so he'd have a few go-to meals if I wasn't there. But every time I brought it up, he'd sort of wave me off, insisting that cooking just wasn't in his skill set and that he was honestly happy just letting me work my magic. And for the most part, I believed him. It was kind of endearing in its own way. He'd always make these self-deprecating jokes about how he'd be lost without me when it came to food. Every time I served up a new dish, he'd go on about how he'd probably be eating frozen pizza and cereal every night if it weren't for me. And you know what? I thought it was sweet. I felt like he appreciated what I did, like he understood that I put thought and love into these meals. His enthusiasm for whatever I cooked made it feel worth the effort. I thought it was a genuine expression of gratitude, a little moment of appreciation that made me feel like what I was doing mattered to him. And for a long time, that was enough for me. His compliments and that little twinkle of wow in his eyes were what I took as appreciation. But now, looking back, I'm starting to wonder if I missed a few clues along the way. So, a few nights ago, I decided to make spaghetti carbonara, one of our all-time favorites. It's one of those dishes I have down to a science, a perfect balance of rich, creamy sauce, crispy pancetta, and just the right touch of parmesan to bring everything together. I've made it so many times that I don't even need to check the recipe. It's one of those meals that I know will hit the spot every time. I plated up our portions, set the table, and we sat down, ready to dig in. The vibe was cozy, and everything seemed normal as we started eating, talking about our day, and laughing over some work stories. I was in my element, just enjoying this little slice of domestic bliss, feeling that sense of pride that I'd once again managed to make a meal that we both loved. But that's when I noticed this odd expression on his face. It was like he was trying to hold something back, a weird little smirk that he couldn't quite hide. At first, I thought he was just amused by something on his mind, so I asked, "What's up?" He shrugged, giving me this mischievous look, and said, "Oh, nothing, nothing. I've just been taking some notes." I chuckled, assuming he was just messing with me. I mean, the man claims he can't tell the difference between cilantro and parsley, so the idea of him taking notes on my cooking seemed so absurd it was funny. But then he dropped a bomb that made my laugh trail off fast. He looked at me, still smirking, and said, "No, really. I made a presentation." At this point, I'm still convinced he's just joking. Who in their right mind would actually make a presentation critiquing their partner's cooking? I mean, come on, this had to be some elaborate prank. But before I could even process it, he was already up, grabbing his laptop from the counter and hooking it up to the TV. I'm sitting there, frozen in place, watching as he fumbles around with the HDMI cable, his face all lit up like he's about to give the performance of his life. Finally, he clicks something, and there it is, right in front of me on our big screen, improving our home dining experience. The title was even decorated with this over-the-top graphic of a fancy restaurant and a cartoon chef with a chef's hat. It was so corny that, for a second, I almost laughed, but the sheer audacity of it was starting to sink in. As he cleared his throat and prepared to dive into his presentation, I just sat there, my fork suspended midair, staring at the screen in disbelief. At this point, I'm starting to realize this isn't some offhand joke. This man isn't just making a lighthearted jab at my cooking. He's really about to present me with a full-on PowerPoint critique of the meals I've poured my heart into, the dishes I've planned and prepared, thinking he loved them. I feel a strange, hollow sensation in my chest as he pulls up the first slide, this serious expression on his face as though he's addressing a boardroom and not his own girlfriend. I'm sitting there in utter disbelief, my fork frozen in midair, as he actually begins going through each slide with a level of dedication that I honestly wouldn't have thought possible from a man who's never set foot in the kitchen without sighing. The first slide is titled, in large bold letters, "Too much garlic." My jaw almost drops. Garlic, really? He launches into this mini rant about how I supposedly use too much garlic in my cooking. He's talking about it like it's some massive culinary crime, saying that while he appreciates a robust flavor, he feels that the garlic sometimes overpowers the more subtle notes in my dishes. There's even a series of bullet points under the title, laid out meticulously like some formal critique. Bullet point 1. Garlic to other flavor ratio needs balancing. Bullet point 2. Consider garlic alternatives for variety. The sheer absurdity of it leaves me speechless. I don't know whether to laugh, cry, or just walk out. This is the same man who, up until now, has scarfed down every meal I've made, telling me how good it was and how he could never make anything like this. Now he's dissecting my use of garlic like he's preparing for a TED Talk on the dangers of over-garlicking. Next slide. Pasta consistency. Yes, he actually has a slide dedicated to the consistency of the pasta I serve. I sit there, dumbfounded, as he begins lecturing me on how my pasta sometimes leans towards overdone. He says this with a straight face, as if he's some Michelin-starred chef critiquing an amateur. He tells me that he'd prefer the pasta to be al dente more consistently, as if I'm not already doing my best to get it just right every time. I want to ask him where on earth he even learned the term al dente, considering the man has, to my knowledge, never boiled pasta himself in his entire adult life. But he's so engrossed in his slide that he doesn't even notice the growing look of disbelief on my face. The tone in his voice is so self-assured, so matter-of-fact, as if he's forgotten he's talking to the person who's been feeding him homemade meals for the past 2 years while he's done absolutely nothing to contribute in the kitchen. Then there's slide 3, more salt, less sass. Yes, he actually wrote that. More salt, less sass. I blink at the screen, half expecting him to break character and laugh, but he doesn't. He's dead serious. He's got this smug little expression on his face as he talks about how he feels I sometimes undersalt my dishes, and how adding just a pinch more salt might improve the overall depth of flavor. A pinch more salt. The man who would probably faint if he had to season a dish on his own is now giving me precise seasoning advice. He goes on about how seasoning is a delicate balance and how he's noticed that my tendency to add too little salt leaves some dishes tasting flat. I can't believe what I'm hearing. The absurdity of the situation is almost surreal. Here's this man who has never once offered to chop a vegetable or stir a sauce, telling me that I need to watch my seasoning levels, as though he's Gordon Ramsay in the flesh. Slide after slide, he goes on like this, nitpicking the tiniest details about my cooking. Each one is more ridiculous than the last. There's a slide dedicated to visual presentation, where he shows some photos he's apparently taken secretly of my plated meals, pointing out how he feels I could improve the aesthetic balance by arranging the vegetables with more intentionality. Another slide is titled Temperature Control, where he suggests that my dishes are sometimes not hot enough when served. Perhaps you could try pre-warming the plates, he says, as if he's dining at a 5-star restaurant and not our little apartment. I'm sitting there, struggling to process how this man, who has repeatedly claimed to be incapable of even boiling water without supervision, has somehow found it within himself to break down my meals with this bizarre level of critique. It's like he's been waiting for this moment to unleash all these pent-up judgments, criticisms he's apparently been harboring for who knows how long. And he's doing it with a straight face, completely oblivious to the fact that I'm practically speechless. My shock turns into a sort of stunned detachment, where I'm just watching him go on and on, wondering if this is even real. But then he gets to slide 8, which is just a giant photo of Gordon Ramsay facepalming with the caption, "What he'd think." That's when something in me snaps. I feel my face flush with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Here I am, giving my time and energy, putting my heart into these meals because I thought he appreciated it. And he's throwing a celebrity chef meme at me, implying that even Gordon Ramsay would be disappointed in my efforts. This isn't funny anymore if it ever was. This isn't lighthearted or playful, it's just mean. I can barely contain my irritation. I look him dead in the eye and say, "If you have so many detailed opinions, maybe you should cook for yourself." My voice is cold, and I can see him falter, a flash of panic crossing his face as he realizes he's misjudged my reaction. He stammers, trying to backtrack, saying, "It's all in good fun," and that he was just trying to help me improve, but he doesn't look sorry. He looks annoyed that I'm not laughing along with him, that I'm not finding this as funny as he apparently does. He tries to explain that he only made the presentation because he wanted to help elevate our dining experience and that he thought we could both improve. My mind reels at the suggestion. Here I was spending hours cooking meals that I thought he genuinely loved, only to find out that he's been sitting there, meal after meal, mentally keeping a checklist of every single thing he thinks I'm doing wrong. It's like he's been cataloging my supposed mistakes, just waiting for the day he could lay them all out in this absurd PowerPoint presentation. I just got up and told him I wasn't going to cook for him anymore. If he didn't appreciate it, he could figure it out himself. I could see the panic set in immediately. He started apologizing, saying he was just joking, but I didn't buy it. He'd put too much thought into it for this to just be a joke. I haven't cooked a single meal since then, not for him, not for myself. I've been living off simple salads, sandwiches, and microwaved meals because I just can't bring myself to cook with him in the house, and let me tell you, the man has been miserable. He's been sulking, eating cereal, instant ramen, and takeout, which he hates because he's convinced everything is too greasy. He's tried to backpedal, saying I'm ruining the joke by overreacting. And he's even tried to bring up the presentation again, saying that maybe if I just looked at it as constructive feedback we could move forward. But at this point, I can't see it that way. I'm just so put off by the whole thing. I feel like this man doesn't appreciate me at all, like he thinks of me as his personal chef whose meals should be tailored to his taste rather than a partner putting time and love into making meals for us to enjoy together. He's still sulking around, occasionally sighing dramatically whenever he has to eat a bowl of cereal for dinner, but I'm honestly not budging. I just feel so disrespected and hurt. I thought he valued my effort and enjoyed what I made, but now I feel like I've been cooking for someone who's been secretly judging everything I do. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to cook after my boyfriend presented me with a PowerPoint critique of my cooking? Update. Hey, Reddit. So, it's been a wild ride since I posted my original story about my now ex-boyfriend's infamous PowerPoint presentation critiquing my cooking. I can't thank you enough for all the support, laughs, and even the outrage on my behalf. I was overwhelmed by the response. Some of you were horrified, some were ready to set up a GoFund for my therapy sessions, and many of you gave me the exact reality check I needed. Honestly, it was like having thousands of friends all chiming in to say, "Girl, you deserve better." And, oh boy, did I need to hear it. So, buckle up because here's the follow-up you didn't know you needed. After reading through your comments, crying from laughter and exasperation, I decided that my relationship needed a serious, come-to-Jesus talk. I'd spent way too long thinking over his PowerPoint presentation, trying to understand if I'd somehow missed the joke he was apparently trying to make. Was there some cosmic comedy in critiquing your partner's cooking in a formal slideshow? Spoiler, there isn't. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how disrespectful and, frankly, mean-spirited his little project had been. I figured it was time to sit down, face to face, and explain how his joke wasn't funny and had left me feeling more insulted than I could describe. So, we sat down in the living room, and I told him how much time, energy, and genuine care I put into cooking for us. I explained that his little critique presentation came off not only as unappreciative but also as an unnecessary attack on something I loved doing for us. I was calm, collected, and trying my best to communicate my feelings maturely. I expected him to understand, maybe even apologize. I mean, isn't that what reasonable, emotionally mature people do when their partner tells them they've been hurt? Well, apparently not. As soon as I started explaining how his PowerPoint made me feel, he smirked, sat back with this smug expression, and said, "Oh, I was prepared for this." And then, with a grand, exaggerated gesture, he reached for his laptop. My stomach dropped as he connected it to the TV again, and I watched in absolute disbelief as another PowerPoint appeared on the screen, this one titled, "How to Take a Joke, a Comprehensive Guide." I wish I were kidding. I can't even describe the mixture of shock and irritation that surged through me as he clicked to the first slide, which featured a meme of a clown putting on makeup with my name plastered over it. Slide 1, ladies and gentlemen. He called it, "The Art of Lightening Up," and it was accompanied by bullet points like "Not every critique is a criticism" and "Why overreacting is lame." He actually had the audacity to outline, in detail, why I was apparently lacking a sense of humor. I sat there, my blood boiling, my mouth hanging open in stunned silence, as he flipped through each condescending slide. He kept his tone all smooth and logical, as though he was presenting a case study on how I needed to chill out. Slide 2 was a bullet point list titled, "Why Your Overreaction is Hilarious," as though it were an objective fact that my response to his initial PowerPoint was, in his words, proof of a humor deficit. This wasn't just him laughing off his actions, this was him doubling down, taking it to another level. Each slide felt more insulting than the last. Slide 3. How I'm clearly the comedian in this relationship, complete with a bulleted list of why he believed his sense of humor was superior. While mine was easily triggered, it was like he thought he was some sort of misunderstood comedic genius, and I just couldn't keep up with his brand of elevated humor. Then, he pulled up slide 6, titled, "Things You Can Do While Not Cooking Because You're Mad," with a bunch of cartoon icons representing activities like meditating, shopping, and Netflix binging. The audacity, right? He actually thought he'd win me over with this next-level joke, but it was clear he wasn't joking at all. He genuinely believed I needed a lesson in lightening up. I don't know if it was the smug grin on his face or the ridiculous condescension, but that's when I had a breaking point. Something snapped. I was done feeling humiliated, done with him acting like this was some kind of clever performance. So, I did what any rational, PowerPoint-loving person would do. I stayed up that night, working on my own presentation, pouring every ounce of pent-up frustration, exasperation, and creativity into crafting a PowerPoint masterpiece of my own. If he wanted a show, well, then he was going to get one. My slideshow was called "Why It's Time to Move On," a farewell guide, and I went all out. I spent hours refining every slide, adding visuals, and making sure each point hit with the exact kind of energy he dished out. Slide 1 was titled "Recap of Recent Events, a Timeline of Disrespect," with a bullet-pointed list of how he'd evolved from sweet boyfriend to arrogant critic. I included the date he first told me he couldn't even boil water, alongside the date he decided he was some culinary expert. Next, I brought up the first PowerPoint critique, calling it the Great Presentation Debacle, complete with a pie chart labeled "Appreciation for My Cooking versus Critiques." The critique slice, enormous; appreciation, a thin sliver. I had flowcharts mapping out the trajectory of his interest in the kitchen, or lack thereof. Slide 3, a chart titled "Effort in Our Relationship," illustrated, in no uncertain terms, the stark contrast between my contributions in the kitchen and his utter indifference. By the time I got to slide 4, "Top 10 Reasons You're Moving Out Today," I could tell the smirk was gone. He didn't look as cocky anymore. It was like reality finally hit, and he understood that I was not playing along with his so-called humor. And then came my personal favorite, slide 9, a gif of Gordon Ramsay yelling, "Get out." Right in the middle of the screen, I swear, I saw him flinch. That was the exact moment he realized I wasn't just angry, I was done. I was showing him the door, and I was showing him in the most pointed, crystal clear way I could manage. The last slide was a list of resources for finding your own apartment, complete with links to local listings and a few basic tips on setting up a kitchen, since clearly, he'd need the help. He sat there, wide-eyed and utterly speechless. I think, in his mind, he was the only one who could be funny or clever. He hadn't anticipated me throwing his own tactics back at him, and certainly not in a way that was so brutally definitive. When I finished, I looked at him calmly and told him that it was time for him to go. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't cry, I was done. And something about my tone must have hit him differently, because he got up and started packing a bag without a word. He kept glancing back at me like he was expecting me to change my mind, but I didn't even flinch. And before anyone worries, yes, he did actually leave. It only took a few hours before he packed most of his things, and no, I didn't even have to threaten him with slide 12, which was just a photo of me blocking the Wi-Fi router. By the end of the morning, he was gone, and I was alone in my kitchen, surrounded by a sense of relief that was almost euphoric. Since then, I've been cooking meals just for myself, enjoying every single bite without a single critique except for my cat's judgmental stare. I feel lighter, freer, like I've reclaimed a part of myself that I didn't even realize had been compromised. I've spent the last few days reveling in this sense of independence, making all the garlicky pasta I want without anyone around to tell me it's too much. Oh, and the cherry on top, a few of you had speculated that he might be in a profession where making PowerPoints was his day job. Well, as it turns out, you were right, he's a business consultant. I guess he took bringing work home to a whole new, unwelcome level. So, yeah, he's probably out there making presentations for a living, but at least I'll never have to be on the receiving end of one again. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. This community made me laugh through my frustration and reminded me that I deserve way better than a boyfriend who needs a slideshow to communicate basic respect. Here's to being single, happy, and free from unsolicited PowerPoint critiques. Cheers!